Hello YouTube. I'm going to make a video about quantum mechanics. This is very important. There are very serious misunderstandings all over the place, and I'm not just referring to YouTube. I mean within the philosophical community, of which I'm a part, amongst physicists who are worshipped by everyone, very serious misunderstandings, okay? One thing, well, let's see, first things first. The supposed indeterminate nature of quantum mechanics. There are many people who think that, according to quantum mechanics, the universe is non-deterministic. I cannot emphasize enough that this is literally not a repercussion of quantum mechanics. This is a result of the most popular interpretation of quantum mechanics. These are very different things, okay? The vast majority of physicists espouse the Copenhagen interpretation, and that is the interpretation that includes all this indeterminism. It includes a different type of randomness, a new type of randomness they had to invent just to get this interpretation off the ground. That's right, majority of physicists believe this. I know it sounds crazy. I sort of think it is, but I'll get into that more. I'll get into it right now. There is basically no rational reason to believe one interpretation over another. I said rational. Maybe I could say it more clearly. Let me unpack that. There has never been any experiment performed that would allow us to distinguish between the different interpretations. There is no physical evidence that one interpretation is true and that other ones are false. Okay? I mean, this is basically why it's possible to have multiple interpretations. If you could just perform some experiment and rule out all interpretations except for one, you wouldn't have several interpretations. But you do have several. There's at least... Anyway, there's many. So... there are several things that are considered extremely strange about quantum mechanics, and these are the things, it's almost sad, okay? These are the things that are emphasized in a lot of popular literature. Brian Greene wrote a book called The Elegant Universe. He followed it up with Fabric of the Cosmos. There's people like Michio Kaku talk a lot about quantum mechanics. And honestly, I think they are either misleading the public purposely, probably not. I don't know whether it's more denigrating to say that they're corrupt and purposely misleading people, or to say that they are so ignorant of their own subject that they're saying things that are false to people. I mean, one thing I could say is that, well, maybe they're just dumbing things down for the general population, but there's an enormous difference between taking one interpretation of the math of quantum mechanics amongst many, one interpretation amongst many, and then kind of simplifying it versus not even acknowledging the fact that there are several interpretations of quantum, okay? They're saying, they're taking the math of quantum mechanics, interpreting it in a way that entails or explicitly states many things that almost everyone would consider crazy, but since the physicists said it, everyone believes it, which is ridiculous and sad. Anyway, there's many statements within the Copenhagen interpretation, statements made about how the universe operates that seem crazy. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. I don't want to throw around the word crazy. It's not very substantive. It's just kind of pointing the finger and saying, I don't like what you're saying. It's so counterintuitive to me that I'm going to call you names. That's not very intelligent in my opinion. So, but anyway, what do the physicists do? They don't say generally, there are some exceptions. There are some very good philosophers of science who have been physicists. David Bohm and John Stuart Bell are two very good examples of that. Okay, here's basically what the physicists did. They took the math of quantum mechanics, they chose one particular interpretation, they dumbed it down, and they fed it to the public as if it were absolutely certain. They have sold a lot of books this way, but honestly, I'm very disappointed. I don't know if their intellectual integrity is to be called into question, but anyway, I do not have positive things to say about these people. I was originally interested in the philosophy of quantum mechanics because of these strange claims. I wanted to see if there's any room at all, to look and see maybe if you could reinterpret quantum mechanics to see if, for instance, indeterminism is a necessary result of quantum mechanics. Not my opinion. It is a fact to say that indeterminism is not a result of quantum mechanics. It is a result of, like I said before, the most popular interpretation of quantum mechanics. The only extremely counterintuitive result that I know of is what's called non-locality. I'll provide a link to it. Okay, there are many people online on YouTube talking about the relationship between quantum mechanics and free will. What one can safely say is that there's no reason to believe that even if there is indeterminacy in quantum mechanics, that suggests that we do have free will. There's no reason to think that at all. According to the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, there are random events. That is the cause of this indeterminism. There are random events. Therefore, the world is not deterministic. Therefore, by definition, it's indeterministic. So yes, if the Copenhagen interpretation is correct, then there is indeterminism, but that doesn't give us free will. That doesn't really give us any reason to suspect that we would have free will. But from before we started with the assumption that the Copenhagen interpretation is correct, well, we have no reason at all to believe that's true. You could easily just choose to to think about quantum mechanics in terms of a different interpretation. There are less popular interpretations. There's been some interesting research done into why the majority of physicists have settled on one particular interpretation amongst many, which, as I said before, there's no evidence that would give us any reason at all to believe the Copenhagen interpretation or any interpretation over any other. But most books, including the ones by Green and Kaku, and many other ones, I stroll through the aisles of a bookstore and I say, oh, here's someone making claims about quantum mechanics, and they'll take the math of quantum mechanics, they'll take on faith, whether they realize it or not, that the Copenhagen interpretation is true, and they derive something that's not even really a result of the Copenhagen interpretation. One book the other day I saw, it said that because quantum mechanics says the world is indeterministic, that means that the world has this sort of like creativity to it, that the world sort of determines the way it's going to be. I mean, to say that this is a misunderstanding is an understatement. So in other words, this author took the fact that the math of quantum mechanics is extremely accurate, and then took an interpretation of that math on faith, and then misinterpreted the results of this extremely weird interpretation. So we are so many steps away from talking about reality at this point. It's ridiculous. Alright, I ended up having to split this video into 2 segments. Might do a third part later. But go down there and click for part 2.